My name is Candace Breyer. I'm the chairperson of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Zoning Board of Appeals is a 9-person volunteer citizen board appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council. Our procedure this evening is as follows. First, we will hear from the Planning and Development Services Unit, represented tonight by Mr. John Barrett. Then the petitioner or his or her representative will make his or her presentation. Petitioners will have 5 minutes in which to make their presentation. Board members may ask questions of either the city or the petitioner. We will acknowledge any written comments received by the board. We will allow an appearing party to express their support or objections. The board will discuss the appeal and formulate a resolution to approve the appeal. 5 affirmative votes of the board will be required for an appeal to be granted. Finally, any qualified party who is aggrieved by a decision of the board can appeal that decision to the Washtenaw County Circuit Court on a timely basis. Roll call. I am here. Mike Daniel.
Here.
Dave DeVarty. Mike Dobmeyer. Nicole Eisenman.
Here.
Todd Grant.
Here.
Julie Weatherby.
Here.
Elizabeth Nelson.
Here.
Charlotte Wilson.
Here.
We have a quorum. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Motion from Julie, support? From Elizabeth, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving on to approval of the minutes. We have minutes from the May 22nd, 2019 ZBA meeting. Any comments or corrections to those minutes?
I have a comment.
Yes.
It's noted that I moved to approve the minutes, but I was actually absent,
Oh, well, that's,
which is correctly noted above, so.
Your presence is always felt.
Didn't you call it an approval?
It's very important.
all right. Any other corrections or comments? Noting that correction, do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Motion. Support from Mike, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving on to our first petition, ZBA 19-011-1103 West Madison Street. John?
Okay, this first case before us this evening is 1103 West Madison. Margaret and Theron Dobson, property owners, are seeking a variance from Chapter 55 of the Unified Development Code, Section 5.18.5, averaging an established front building line. An 8-foot 2-inch variance is requested from the 28-foot 2-inch required front setback in order to construct a new porch and vestibule. The subject property is zoned R1C Single Family Dwelling. The home is located in the Selma section of the Eber-White neighborhood. The owners are proposing to demolish the existing foyer and porch and construct a new 116-square-foot foyer and a new 140-square-foot front porch. A 2-car garage and mudroom on the west side of the property is also part of the planned project construction, but does not require variance approval. If you'll turn your attention to the monitors. The first slide you'll see is the zoning map, location map. The property is highlighted in yellow at the center of the map. The next slide is the aerial photo of the existing conditions in surrounding neighborhoods. You'll see it's just west of South 7th Street and Eber-White. And the next slide is the zoomed-in aerial photo. You see the property is somewhat of a flag-shaped lot. It's might be a little easier to follow along on your packets. This is the survey that was submitted with the application. The petitioner's architect has superimposed the project footprint on the survey. In the green is the proposed new front porch and foyer, which will be the 20 feet from the front setback, and the existing foyer is just below it, and it says in the 8.8. You'll see it right here on my cursor, and currently it's at 24 feet 10 inches. So the applicant is proposing basically to come out approximately almost 4 feet from where it's existing, but from the average front setback, they'll need an 8-foot variance request. And on the other side is the proposed 2-car garage and mudroom, which is not part of tonight's variance request. The next slide is the floor plan, and you can see in your packets, it's difficult on the screen, of the existing foyer and porch to be removed in this hatched blue area, and then in the green area will be the new proposed construction. And the next slide is a floor plan showing that in more detail. And then there's a elevation of what the proposed construction will look like in the elevation from the street view. The next slides are my photos that I took at the inspection of the property. You'll see how the existing front porch and foyer look right now, and this is the area that's to be demolished. This is looking at it from the western side of the property, and you see that is the area that's to be demolished, and the new construction is going to take its place in this area. Just another close-up of the front porch area. A side view, elevation, if you will, from the, of the porch area, proposed construction. This is the existing front steps leading into the house. This is a photo of the driveway, back to the backyard, you see the detached garage. And this is looking at the house from the rear of the property out towards the street and West Madison. This is the adjacent property to the east. This is a portion of the rear yard and the property to the west. That's all I have at this time. I'll take any questions.
Thanks, John. Any questions for staff? Elizabeth?
So you said that the garage is not part of required variance?
No, that's a portion of the construction will meet the setback requirements.
Okay, thanks.
Charlotte?
Is it going to be an enclosed covered porch, or is it just a open porch with a roof over it?
I believe it's going to be an open porch with the roof over it, yes. Yes.
Would it be able to be turned into an addition if this variance is granted? Like to be enclosed?
Yes, if the applicant submitted a building permit to do that, but we require it to be, the variance is always to be completed per submitted plans, so adjacent to it, that foyer area to the left is gonna be enclosed, so I'm not sure. I'm sure the applicant can speak to whether their future plans are, but the variance is gonna be for that footprint, so if they did want to enclose it, they could.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, if the petitioner's here, if you could please step forward, state your name for the record, and sign in.
Hi, my name is Darren Dobson, and I live at 1103 West Madison with my wife and 3 children. And this porch and vestibule is a significant sort of movement towards the sidewalk, but if you see on some of the pictures, there's sort of a cement planter, and you can't see it because of our not that nice landscaping in front of it, but it actually only comes out an additional 2 feet from where the planter is. And so there you can see that cement planter. It's only additional 2 feet from that. And the plan is to put a porch there along with a vestibule, with the idea being that the porch is wide enough that a person who needed assistance could actually turn their walker or wheelchair, get into the vestibule, and have, a space to sit, take off their boots. There's zero intention of enclosing the porch. With the added footprint of our house, would have no need or desire to do such a thing. Wouldn't really fit with the character of the plans for the house. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about it.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner?
Do I point to people or how does?
Yeah, Julie?
So did you think of other plans for this that wouldn't include the variance?
Yep, we talked with our architect about perhaps having a smaller porch, but a smaller porch with the existing footprint based on where our house is sitting is quite complicated because our house is positioned, you know, this sort of northwest corner of the lot, and it's already a non-conforming structure. In order to have any form of porch, you'd have to rip off the front of the house and sort of push a porch into existing house, which I suppose is doable, but that would be a major undertaking.
Todd?
Following up on Ms. Weatherby's question, have you thought where the garage is going to be east of your main structure? Have you thought about maybe putting the porch and the vestibule between that new garage and your existing house?
We had some consideration of that, but it doesn't fit the architectural style and the roof lines. What that would require is us moving proposed first floor bathroom and kitchen and proposed first floor sort of den, which could be a first floor bedroom. So it would cause us to rearrange the entire structure of the house. So again, in filling out the packet, like, all things are possible with money. I mean, you could knock down the house and move it, but that seems burdensome.
Elizabeth?
Could you repeat for me what you said earlier about the, relative to the planter, how many feet?
Yeah, so our home currently is encroaching in the front setback already. It's a non-conforming structure. And so our current house is 4 feet into that setback, and then that planter box, which is non-enclosed structure, is an additional 2 feet out. So the steps to the front porch will actually only come another 2 feet closer to the sidewalk.
The actual porch.
What am I looking, when you say the planter, what
That-
am I looking
if
at?
you
Am I
look,
looking at
like-
that ledge?
Yes, that ledge.
So it looks really, oh, that's
Yes.
a planter?
I know, I know.
Oh.
It's on the north side, it gets zero sun, you can't grow anything in it, but it is technically a planter,
Interesting.
yes.
So you want your porch to go 2 feet beyond that?
Right.
Or 4 feet beyond that?
2 feet beyond that would be 8 feet into the setback,
Okay. Thank
because
you.
our home is already into the setback.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Is there anyone else here from the public to speak on this petition?
I don't hear well, so speak up, please. I'm the next door neighbor. Actually, where they're at would probably affect me the most. And it's great what they want to do. I've been there 27 years. And my house also was enlarged and a garage added. And I had to get a small variance for 2 or 3 feet just to have a window so I could see out the side. And I went through the same procedure. But I think when you look at that picture, it's really difficult for a person to get through their front door. I mean, it's extremely narrow. And the thing is, my house was enlarged, and the house on the other side of them was enlarged, and yet they had this huge yard to do this. So it wouldn't be different than what's already been done on both sides of them. So that's all I have to say. And I hope it passes for them.
Thank you, sir. Can you please sign in?
We gotta sign it.
So,
I didn't either.
Is there anyone else here to speak on this petition? I will note that we did receive letters of support from 705 Mount Pleasant, 621 Madison Place, 619 Eber White Boulevard, and 709 Madison Place. With that, we are in discussion. Todd?
I'll go first. So, I think in the strictest sense, this actually doesn't meet 2 of the 5 criteria. And that is, I don't know that, if we didn't grant the variance, that it would be substantially more than mere inconvenient, because they can use the property now. So in the most strict sense, they probably, this is criteria B, and they probably don't meet criteria E, because they can use their property now. But that said, I think on balance, I'm willing to ignore the strict letter here for several reasons. One is because of the unusual constraints of the property. Number two, they're only talking about increasing the variance by another 20%, de minimis in my opinion. And the third reason, I noticed that one of the supporting letters, 1103 West Madison, notes about a front porch Friday. So I know that there's sort of a push that it's nice to have front porches, but in a number of neighborhoods, the front porches don't get used. And I would intuit from this, the front porches do get used in this neighborhood. And this would help the neighborhood. So I think I'm really leaning toward voting for this, even though it doesn't quite meet all 5 criteria. And I'd like to hear feedback from my fellow members about that.
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're strictly applying our criteria, it doesn't meet it, but I'm with Todd. I think it's just kind of de minimis. I think it's an improvement. It's, in my judgment, a small ask for a improvement to the home that's not going to negatively impact any neighbors. So I'm leaning towards voting for it.
Any other discussion? Elizabeth?
I would tend to support this just because I'm looking at it in the context of its neighbors, and it's compelling to me that this is really almost, it's not making it stand out as different from what's surrounding it, and that, yeah, I am inclined to vote yes, just because it is such a small thing, and it does seem like an improvement.
Charlotte?
I'm also leaning towards voting yes. I believe it is the minimum necessary. It's in character with the neighborhood, and it's the minimum necessary for someone maybe in a wheelchair who would need to be accessible to this location, would need to get into the front door.
Dave?
I'm sorry that I wasn't here for your presentation.
It's compelling.
I was there earlier today. There are some large trees, 1 foot diameter or more, where you're proposing the garage. Are there going to be any replacement trees that you're proposing?
Should I?
Yes.
Is that,
Yeah, we have thought about that quite a bit. In particular, looking at what is proposed on the City of Ann Arbor's website is canopy loss fee. But really just thinking about how do we replace sort of the green footprint of the home. And so it will be tough to replace them because they're quite lovely trees.
They're big trees.
Yeah, but we have quite a lot of space in our backyard, and our plan is to sort of repopulate the treescape in our backyard. I don't know if you can see the backyard that well.
well, I did see it.
Okay, so, it's this long 160 foot, and the entire fence line is basically empty. And we actually planted quite a few trees there. They didn't take, but the plan is to do our best to replace them along that.
Yeah, with this photo, there's actually a couple trees that are just outside the photo to the left,
Yeah.
up near the front.
Yeah, they are similar to that tall tree right beyond the play structure, though. Right there, yeah. Do you have, I don't have a specific plan. I have looked at the city website about the approved trees that are available. That's really for the city property. But in thinking about how to replace them, we plan to use the guidance from the City of Ann Arbor's website.
And
I will say that that portion of the project, the 2-car garage and mudroom, is not part of the variance request tonight.
I understand,
Yep,
but it's removing trees.
Yep, but it's going to be built within the setbacks,
And-
required setbacks, so.
And actually, what my commentary was when I looked at this site and looked at, across the house, this is there is a second story on it, but it's a small bungalow home. Just to the west are a couple very large homes, although one of them is really screened off by trees.
Yeah.
It's almost a McMansion, although an older one, not a new one. And there's another one just to the south of that that's also a very large house. On the other side of the street, all the homes are 1-story bungalows, very small, as around the corner on Madison Place. So what you're doing is, I view it I'm almost, if it was a porch, if it was an open porch, it would be easier for me. But the fact that most of the footprint that's going into, that you're asking the variance for, is interior space, a foyer that's an interior space, I'm asking myself, why can't the addition be put on the back to have a foyer, a rear entry foyer, if that's what you're really looking for, is an entry foyer? Why can't that go on the back instead of having enclosed space that is really predominantly the bulk of the front setback variance that you're asking? And that's what I'm asking myself. I'm not really asking the petitioner, but as somebody who's being asked, as somebody who's very favorable to making variance allowances when people are putting front porches on and bringing eyes into the front of the yard and interactions with community neighbors, pedestrian interactions with neighbors. I'm very favorable to that. I think it enhances the community. But to give a variance, such a big piece of this is totally interior space, enclosed interior space. And to me, that weighs to vote to oppose this.
Well, here's what I would offer in response, is that I would offer in response that I hear where you're coming from. You don't want to just expand for the sake of expansion. However, you know, a significant portion of what we're trying to do is have a front presence for our home, and that's where the front porch comes in. I would say, I'm not sure what use a vestibule is absent a porch, and I'm not sure what use a front porch is on the back of your house. And so the additional interior space is 116 square feet, which is not insignificant, but it's also, I think, not a huge ask in that context. That's how I see it.
So I just want to make one point clear, Dave, Mr. DeVardi, if you go to diagram 2 in their packet, there is going to be a 140 square foot covered open porch.
Right, I saw that.
And then the foyer is going to be less square footage. And it's just going over the blue hatch is the existing foyer, and so that new foyer will be going over that. So they do have some enclosed space there now.
Okay, so the new foyer is 116 square feet,
And then the adjacent to that
is the
is the
porch.
is the porch,
140.
yep. So, and the blue hatched area is what's existing foyer, open space now.
Right, I understand.
Yeah, just wanted to.
I mean, I had all of this out as I was looking at it.
So,
Yeah, go ahead, Ted.
yeah, before you got here, Dave, that I asked the question of why didn't they expand more on the east of the main building and put a vestibule and porch there? And,
Well, that's driveway.
yeah, but explain, they'd have to change the functions of a lot of the rooms in the house, and they would greatly increase the cost. So that was the problem. Was that your answer, sir? I'm summarizing
Yeah,
correct?
That is
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Are we in discussion?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. This is pretty difficult for me. Seeing that there's a lot of new construction, it makes me inclined to vote against this, because with the new construction, it seems that you can try to incorporate within the limits that are given. I do agree it is a small request, but I'm still kind of deciding. But it's a struggle for me, because when you're designing something new, it seems that you can accommodate the setbacks required.
Any other comments? Are we ready?
I have one more comment. Again, I'm sorry I'm at a loss that I didn't share in hearing other people's comments, but I do have to say, I did visit the site and walked around. I, years ago, came in and asked for a variance for a front porch. I didn't put any interior space. So I do not have a foyer. I do not have a mudroom in the front where my front porch is. I did get a small variance, and a very minimal intrusion into the, at that time, the existing right-of-way, which was because of averaging. Or not right-of-way, the setback. And you enter directly from my front porch into my living room. There is a closet there, which we use as a coat closet. I did create a mudroom in the rear, and most of our access is through the rear of the house. And I don't see why, with such a substantial backyard, if there is new construction, why it can't be, and there is a foyer which is primarily for entry and mudroom and whatever usage, why that can't be on the rear and just have a front porch on the front. So I'm going to vote against it just because I don't want to set a precedent of supporting enclosed space intruding into the setback, the front setback, when the same use can be achieved by building the new space in a different place that doesn't intrude on setbacks. So that's where I'm coming from. It's based on my walk around the site. And separate, I know you don't need a variance for the garage. I hope you do something to replace those trees, because those are beautiful trees.
I guess the only comment I would have is because it's already placed in the existing front setback, the burden to addressing the current front entry, meaning removing the entire front wall in order to create a new separated entry, new construction, is significant.
Elizabeth?
Following up on Dave's sort of thinking about the back, when you park in the back, like with that garage, do you enter your house through the sunroom? I'm looking at the floor plan. Or maybe I'm turned around.
The short
Oh, I'm
answer is
turned around.
yes, but that garage will be gone,
Oh, right, okay, so,
as will the driveway.
Our intention is to create that as a green space in the backyard that we share with Marion and Coast, the neighbors in the White House. So the entire garage and driveway will be largely removed.
So you'd have to walk around the side of a house where no driveway exists to enter through the back.
gotcha. Okay. I see. Okay, thank you.
I think the intention, as our neighbor mentioned, is that, you know, he's come into our home before, is that when you get onto the steps of our front vestibule, like entry now, you open the door onto the porch, and then you enter a space where you can't maneuver, like you can't turn to enter the home. So it's pretty prohibitive to enter our home with the existing foyer. And this was an attempt to make the front porch and entryway cohesive with the redesign that we're doing.
Any further discussion? Are we ready for a motion?
I'd like to say something,
Sorry, sir, we're in discussion.
because he came in later and he didn't hear what I said. And I lived there 27 years. And I'd like to, the thing that kind of bothers me is the fact, I live there. And the thing that makes that neighborhood nice is because I have a porch. I have one of the few porches in the place. And on nice days, I sit outside, my wife and I sit outside. We watch the kids go up and down the street with their bicycles and their scooters. Now, I'd like to find out, sitting in the back of the house, how is he going to see that? And you look at the houses around there, you come down Eberwhite, they're all larger, bigger houses with porches. But yet, on the other side of the street, they're squished together, they share driveways. So here you have a person that has a lot that can do some neat things with it, and you're kind of saying, well, you shouldn't do that. I live there, you don't.
Thank you,
And
sir.
I think that's a
Thank you,
real-
sir. Okay, thank you. We got it, thank you.
And I think it's a real neat thing.
Thank you, sir. Please have a seat.
To have the kids be able to see all this stuff.
Thank you.
Right.
Ready for a motion? Anyone?
I'll make the motion.
Dave, thank you.
Petition ZBA 19-011, 1103 West Madison. Variance, based on the following findings of fact and in accordance with the established standards for approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants the following variance from Chapter 55 Unified Development Code, Section 518.5, averaging an established front building line. A variance of 8 feet 2 inches from the 28-foot 2-inch required front setback to allow construction of a new front porch and vestibule. The construction is to be built per the submitted plans. The alleged practical difficulties are peculiar to the property and result from conditions which do not exist generally throughout the city. That the practical difficulties which will result from a failure to grant the variance include substantially more than mere inconvenience, inability to attain a higher financial return, or both. The variance, if granted, will not significantly affect surrounding properties. The circumstances of the variance request are not self-imposed. The variance request is the minimum necessary to achieve reasonable use of the land or structure.
Do I have support? Support. Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
No.
Nicole?
No.
Todd?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
Charlotte?
Yes.
I also vote yes. The request is granted. Moving on to petition ZBA 19-012, 2167 Medford Road. John?
Okay. John Oslin and Five Star Signs, representing Ann Arbor Woods, is seeking a variance from section 5.33.2, subsection B, non-conforming signs. A new sign package is proposed to replace the color, fonts, and logos of directional and identification signs for a multifamily development. The subject property is a 262-unit apartment complex located on the East Stadium Boulevard and east of St. Francis Drive. The complex was developed in 1963 and is zoned R4B, multiple family dwelling district. The applicant is proposing to eliminate 2 4x4 address signs and reduce a third sign down to 2 feet by 4 feet. One of the leasing center signs is proposed to be reduced to 2 feet by 4 feet from the existing 5 feet by 4 feet. The other leasing center sign will be removed and replaced with a 2x4 address directional sign. The result is the elimination of 3 signs and the reduction of 2 others. Section 5.33.2, subsection B states no non-conforming sign shall be changed to another non-conforming sign and shall have any change made in the structure, shape, size, type, design, or mechanical or electrical equipment of the sign unless the change brings the sign into compliance with this chapter. If you'll follow along on the monitors, the first slide is the location map. You see the property is highlighted in yellow. Everyone should remember this from last month. The next slide is the aerial of the surrounding properties and existing conditions. And this is a zoomed in portion of the property and the apartment complex. Next slide is the survey that was submitted with the original application. And these are these existing signs. Let's see. If you look in your packet, I apologize, I think the slides may have gotten messed up. Look at the first sign package. You'll see sign number 2, which is the address signs, which are the 48 inches by 48 inches. 2 of those will be eliminated for buildings 21 and 80 and 2120. And 1 will be reduced from 4 feet by 4 feet to 2 feet by 4 feet for building 2016. And then below that, you'll see the leasing center office. That'll be reduced from its current 5 by 4 to a 2 by 4, which is 12-foot sign, 12 square feet reduction. And then adjacent to that, you'll see the directional sign that will be replaced with a removed 4x4 address sign, reduced in size to a 2x4, so almost reducing it in half. And that's the proposed sign, color, fonts, and logos. And there's the community map that was submitted with the original application, and these are the photos that were taken at the property. You see the main identification sign? That's one of the types of the large 4x4s that will be removed and reduced. And that's the existing leasing sign that will be reduced. Another identification sign to orient you to the property. And that's what I have right now at this time. I'll take any questions.
Thanks, John. Questions for John? No? Okay. Oh, Elizabeth.
So with these reductions, how much is the variance now? Like, I mean,
So-
like, individually, they've reduced a lot of these signs by half or eliminated them entirely, like, I know, isn't there a sum total of how much square footage of signage that they're allowed, and what's the?
Well, they're not going to increase any signs. So they're just gonna swap out what's existing, the faces, and change it to different color and fonts and logos. I believe there's 16 signs out there right now, so they're gonna reduce that number. They're gonna reduce it down to 3, and then reducing 2 other additionals.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? Dave?
I just want to follow on Elizabeth's question. So they're going from 16 signs to 13 signs?
As far as I believe that's correct, yes.
And additionally, 2 of those 13 signs are going to be smaller.
Correct.
So right now, they're pre-existing, so they're non-conforming with the sign ordinance. How many signs or square footage total would be allowed under the current sign ordinance, is what I think Elizabeth was asking,
Okay,
what I'd
so
like to ask.
currently, a residential multifamily development like this is allowed to have 2 main identification signs. And they have 3. And then there's nothing in the ordinance that allows for the address signs and leasing center signs.
So the address signs,
Generally,
Which-
addresses are on buildings, and so these are additional signage with the logo and Medford on it, the Leaf logo and Medford. But the applicant's proposing to eliminate a few of those and reduce the existing ones down.
and the current sign ordinance doesn't address address signs that are not
Detached,
affixed,
that are
to- are detached.
Exactly.
So, just as a question, not related specifically to this, I've seen increasingly single-family residences putting little tiny signs out in their front yard by their sidewalk up to their front door. In fact, a couple of my neighbors have done that, but they're very tiny,
Addresses, though?
with a
Like on
number,
a stone?
with a number,
or a
like a
number.
stone or a little metal thing close to the ground that has a number on it. Is that?
That's not something that we're enforcing at this time, no.
But that's, I don't think it should be in violation of our sign ordinance, but is it in violation of our sign ordinance?
You need to
When-
remove yours, Dave.
I don't have it, but, and I happen to think that they're nice.
This is just a trial, this is just a trial balloon. See
So,
what's the-
so the code allows for single-family residential structures or properties to have address letters 12 inches or smaller.
On the building, or does it not
It
address?
doesn't stipulate that.
Oh, so there, it's not, okay. Thank you, that's totally.
But if this community wanted to have address letters of 12 inches of size on the building wall, then they could.
Right.
But these are just additional. But I will assist the applicant somewhat and say, this isn't the only apartment community. They're not unique. There are many out there.
Right. Thank you.
Yes.
Elizabeth?
Okay, I have another question. In my packet, I'm looking, are we looking, I was about to ask maybe a stupid question. So you have is this the page from the last time it came before us? That's in our packet? Because under the Ann Arbor, the number
So-
5, the explanation that I have on one page of my packet is that they wanted to replace it with a larger sign, but then this has been amended.
So if you look at the sign package with the red writing on it,
Oh, okay. this
those
is
are the proposed changes, and then the next page is what's existing.
Okay, I get it. All right, sorry about that.
And existing with the color changes in the fonts. You see how the leasing center currently is brown and white? The
Yes.
proposed in the next page is gonna go to a silver and black.
Okay.
But on
okay.
the existing page, in the red, is the dialogue that they're saying that they're gonna change.
Okay, all right, now I understand. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, the petitioner could please step forward, state your name for the record. You'll have 5 minutes.
Hello again. My name's Ron Saber, and I'm the property manager of Ann Arbor Woods. So just to reiterate what we talked about last month, it's the signage in the specific areas are needed because of the uniqueness of the property. It's not a, recently built community. It was built in the late 50s, early 60s. So we did go back and evaluate it, and we feel that this is a fair compromise. The larger signs that are going to be taken down, we'll put smaller signs on the building. In case you're wondering, I don't know if you could go back to the building for 2016, and the reason why we couldn't eliminate that one is because of the way that the building is positioned on the street. So when you're coming down Medford from Manchester,
Did I have it?
It'd
actually be
this building on the map?
yeah, you can see it on the actual site map. So when you're coming down from Manchester towards St. Francis, because it's a one-way behind the building, you can't actually, you're gonna pass it before you could see a sign. So we were gonna reduce that in size so you can still see it from your car.
2016, you said, sir?
Yes,
So
2016.
this one right here.
Medford. Nope, it's at the larger, long
2016?
building at the other end.
Oh,
That's
this one.
2016, that one. So, we feel it's a fair compromise, and, yeah, that's all. That's all we have.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner? I will say that I appreciate you taking into consideration the feedback that you got last time you were here and coming back with what I think is a good compromise. So, thank you.
Thanks.
And we are in discussion. Dave?
I want to compliment the developers here for coming in and asking for reductions. And it's, personally, I'm in favor of rewarding them with my support for coming in with a reduced package of signage. So we're actually meeting the intent, the original intent of the Ann Arbor sign ordinance by moving evolutionarily towards less sign pollution out there. And I think what you've done is what they've done is evaluate where they really need the signage and been willing to remove the signs that they think are unnecessary. So I'll be able to support this at this time.
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I supported this last time. I'm going to support it here. I only hope that if I have a friend who moves into this complex and I'm bringing them hot food, I can find their place in time. So, we'll see. I guess that'll come out later. But no, I am in fully support. I do appreciate the petitioner's good faith effort to meet our feedback as well.
Any additional discussion or motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Dave.
Petition ZBA 19-012, 2167 Medford Road. Variance. Based on the following findings of fact and in accordance with the established standards for approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants the following variance from Chapter 55, Unified Development Code, Section 5.33.2, subsection B, non-conforming signs. A variance to allow a new sign package that changes the color, fonts, and logos of the existing non-conforming directional and identification signs for a multifamily development. This sign package, or the sign package, must comply with the submitted plans. A, the alleged practical difficulties are peculiar to the property and result from conditions which do not exist generally throughout the city. B, the practical difficulties which will result from a failure to grant the variance include substantially more than mere inconvenience, inability to attain a higher financial return, or both. C, the variance if granted will not significantly affect surrounding properties. D, the circumstances of the variance request are not self-imposed. E, the variance request is the minimum necessary to achieve reasonable use of the land or structure.
I have a motion, do I have support? Todd?
Sure.
Julie?
No, I was just supporting, but
Oh, yes.
She's
Sorry.
calling me.
Yes or no?
yes, oh, sorry.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
Charlotte?
Yes.
I vote yes. Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
The request is granted. Moving on to unfinished business, we have none. We've addressed new business. We've noted all the communication. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak? Seeing no one, do I have a, oh,
I
yeah,
have one last order of business.
yeah, go for it,
Sorry.
John.
So, I just wanted to, award this certificate of appreciation to Julie Weatherby. Although her time on the board was brief, her, knowledge and expertise was significant, and we appreciate all your efforts on the board and everything you've done. Thank you so much.
That's nice.
That's all I have.
That was nice, John.
Thank you, John.
That's nice.
Now, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
Yes.
moved.
Yep, second.
Motion from Dave, support from Todd, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.